Are we having fun yet? We got 1 at 6 o'clock for facilities.
We don't.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't.
They're good.
I'm on, but you are. Unless you want to stay. You know, it's not the end of the world, but you can do it.
I know.
I might as well spend the night.
I won't be here. I'm saying, Mr. Farmer.
6:30.
You know, I think do we have a spare room around here we put a cot in maybe? Just for Jerry Evans?
Yeah.
Since you got so many things to go to. Oh my thanks. You get up at 6 o'clock though, every morning.
Where's our fearless lady?
She's with me. She's really here. Can we start the meeting? It is now 4 o'clock. I want to call this Marion County Board of Education meeting to order. Please, I'm going to ask Ms. Tracy Sharp, our preschool and ECE director, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And after the Pledge of Allegiance, let's remain standing for a moment of silence.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Our superintendent's here. She's just in a visiting right now, private meeting, so she'll be here shortly. She'll be ready to join us and to share some good, exciting news. But to lead this off, though, I believe we'll have school data reports and Miss Tammy Newton. Newcomb. Sorry, Tammy. That's what happens when you breathe fresh air.
That's right. I'll give Teresa a moment to pull these up. I'm going to not go in the order of the report because it's pretty long, as you've seen from when I sent it to you last week. But we're going to start with Marion County High School, and then we'll go back to the map, because with Marion County High School, part of this is real data. And when I say real data, I'm meaning it is a part of the accountability cycle this year. So this will be part of their state testing results. In yellow, oops, sorry, that's okay. We go back. In yellow, you're going to see the preliminary ACT scores. That is not the official results. Those have not been given to us yet. But Mr. Abel and his staff has done some calculations, and that's what he and his staff have calculated as preliminary. So we wanted to go ahead and report those. But what we're most excited about is that each day, it seems like we're getting an email daily about a student that has obtained either college, career, or both college and career status. And so at this point, we have increased to 70%. We have about 100, and this is 150, but actually it is 156 as of today, the last email that I read, out of 214. So we're about at 73%, I believe, is what that would be, which is pretty phenomenal, because if you recall at last year's summit, we talked about initially that we had about 46%, if I recall accurately, that were of our graduates that were graduating college or career ready. So in a matter of 2 years, the high school has increased to 57% last year, and the high school has reached their goal, the state goal. So that's pretty exciting news right now, because that took a lot of hard work to get to that point. So I don't know if that was the good news that you were referring to, but that is good news. Then below that is some COSA results that Mr. Abel sent me, and it tells you what the pass rate is on each of the career and technical and practical living courses that have taken the COSA exam. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to the MAP results, if you don't have any questions on high school.
Any questions? Anybody?
Okay, so now we're going to switch to an entirely different test, and the MAP assessment is just a universal screener. It is what we do to meet the guidelines by the state to be a part of that response to intervention system. What you might hear educators use the acronym of RTI, making sure that we have all of our kids progressing the way that they need to. And if they don't meet those guidelines, that we're providing interventions for them. So what we do with the MAP assessment is that we're keeping an eye on our groups of kids, and we're also drilling down to individual students. So we're going to look at the spring 2015 report, okay? In that report, it's included the fall and the winter, but we've already looked at that in prior board meetings. So if you go to the spring of 2015, the first sheet is reading, okay? Everything on this page is reading. And so I use the same system that we've used for the past 2 years. If the grade level at that school was at the norm or above, the cell is shaded green. If they were below the norm, the cell is shaded red. Okay, and remember, the norm is just that middle, the average. In addition, because most of the time the first thing the teachers want to know is how does this compare to last year? Because what MAP is really good about, it's about growth. We don't want to compare ourselves to each other. We're comparing ourselves to the norm and what did we do last year, because it's about growing and getting better. And so in parentheses behind the score tells you the difference between the group of kids the year before that was at that grade level. Now I'm going to caution you. It doesn't mean that when you see I don't want to pinpoint a particular grade level, but I'm going to have to use this example. It doesn't mean that the first graders at Calvary that they lost 4 RIT points. What that means is they're just not at the same place that class before as a whole was at. You would have to track them to their second grade year to see how those kids did. And we'll look at that in a minute in a graph, in a different graph. Okay? The second table shows you proficiency in terms of kids that are at the 61st percentile or higher on the MAP assessment. So what I've done here, just to summarize, on the average, you can see that if we grew in our percent total, the cell is shaded green. So we went from about 51 to 56 at Calvary, 38 to 34 at Glasscock, West Marion 41 to 44 percentile, Lebanon Elementary School pretty much the same, 39, 38, Lebanon Middle School from 43 to 35% proficient, 48 to 44, so pretty close there. And remember, this is just a prediction. These are not actual scores. It's just a way that we are monitoring formatively throughout the year so that we can provide interventions to kids. Then the last table shows the growth. What the MAP assessment says is it gives on average how many RIT points a child should grow in a particular grade level. And so the cells that are colored green are grade levels that grew on average the same as that norm, and the ones that are red are the ones that were slightly below the norm. If there's not any questions with reading, I'm going to move to math. Okay, so moving to math, pretty exciting news with math. At first glance, you probably think, oh my gosh, there's a lot of red. But if you recall last year at this time, when we looked at math, it was predominantly all red. We have shown huge growth in math, on the MAP assessment. You will see that we have several areas where we're above the norm, and you can see several areas and grade levels that took huge growth in what they've done there. So I think that's pretty exciting in a 1 year's time frame. More than that, if you look at the elementary, you're going to see significant proficiency increases on MAP. You see Calvary going from 34 to 52, Glasscock 20 to 28, West Marion 30 to 48, Lebanon Elementary School 28 to 36. You're seeing huge growth in math at the elementary. And that's pretty impressive, because that's not going to happen at the secondary level. Math is kind of like a foreign language, like music. It builds upon that new skill, and so you have to have that foundational skill. The same as what we talk about with reading, that we have to have kids reading by the end of the 3rd grade. So I think that that's pretty impressive, and I think that means that we have great things to come for our secondary level as well. Okay. Marion County High School, you will not see the parentheses behind that, because remember, this is their first year giving this MAP assessment. Same as kindergarten. This is kindergarten's first year giving this assessment. The same pattern here for growth at the bottom. Any questions on that? All right, so the last thing that I'm going to point out is, Teresa, let's just move to a grade level, maybe one of the accountability, 4th grade. That might be better. We could go through every single grade level, and you have that intensive report. The teachers at each grade level, they have, this data is really old for them. They've looked at this, they've analyzed it, they've looked at every single child, and they've been putting interventions in place. But what each grade level looked at with their principal or with the instructional coaches is they looked at a graph that they have shown last year's, and each school was a different color, and with the norm always being the red line. And then if you scroll a little bit, because that's last year's data, we don't think that one, that's finished. You'll go to this is this year's. And so what we always talked about is looking at the gap between where you were at and the red line at the beginning and the gap of where you were at the end. Because the goal is that you have decreased that gap between your line and the red line, or you've exceeded it on the other side to the positive. Okay? And then just to make sure that it's not about comparing your colored line to another school, because we all work together, then each school received, and I know this jumps on me, Teresa, I'm sorry. If we go just to this one is fine. They also received a graph that just had their school with the norm. So it showed last year's to this year's. So it's about comparing yourself to yourself. Are you growing? Are you getting better? And looking at your practices at that. So that's pretty much, if there's a particular grade level you want to look at, I'll be more than happy to do so. But,
I noticed that second grade, going it all the way across that county, maybe future. I don't know. One grades. Did you understand?
for which, reading or math? In reading. You know, I think what we've done a really good job of is really trying to tailor our common assessments to be standards based. Our reading is quite a bit different. I don't want to say it's harder, but in a way, it's so much broader. It's about the text. So you could be talking about characters from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, but the text complexity that the kids are going to look at is going to be different. And so pinpointing what that needs to be at that grade level continues to be a challenge. And they have their journey series that they use for that. So we need to continue to examine at second grade or any grade level that maybe we're not showing as much progress to make sure that we're, that the text complexity is where we need it to be. And like we'll know more when we get K-Prep and we have the real data. This is predictive.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Ms. Newcomb, the graphs and the charts that we see are very colorful, very beautiful. I'd just like to ask a question. Can you share with us what we are doing to eradicate the red and get more of the green and yellows on the charts specifically? Do we have programs to address those?
Absolutely, and I wouldn't even use the word program because we have people that are working with these kids. All of the schools have different plans, but most of them involve kind of a naming and claiming, picking so many kids, working with them with interventions. They each have their own dynamics within terms of maybe literacy groups where they might work with groups of kids that way and target specific skills. But I think more importantly what we've done is based on their common assessments, because remember, every single first grader takes the same math test and the same reading test, so it's an equal across the board. Then what can happen is the teacher can look to see, well, my kids didn't do quite as well on this question, on this standard. And so what's happening, our teachers are talking across the district about what did you do that your kids did better on that, or vice versa. So it's been a great collaboration. I think that will get even stronger next year because I think the more time they get to work with each other face to face, besides just the electronic means will help. But specifically, I think they're looking at sheets of data with kids' names and looking at individual students and having conversations about the specific student and what that specific student needs. And what this student needs is different than this student. And so they come up with individual plans for each one of them and they put them into action.
And I think that we all, part of the staff, and part of the school board, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to make sure that the general public knows that although we're celebrating, our projected successes, our current successes, that we also are still focusing on the areas in which we know need to be brought up to a level so it will be a total success.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I guess before I sit down, one other thing that they are working really, really hard on is goal setting. That's been a focus, I think, in all 7 schools. Even the high school is starting to do a better job with that. But sitting down with kids and goal setting, not just about a test score, but about what they want to do in life, or just goal setting in general. So I think that's going to be very positive for not just test scores, but for where we want kids to go next.
I'd just like to echo what Mr. Evans said, and I'd like to add to that. When I had the session with you and Superintendent Schlosser is the fact that we have a great growth pattern. And what's more exciting is that we have room to grow even further. And
Absolutely.
that's the good news. So I want to applaud the central office and the leaders in each school building and their staff individually. After hearing what you all presented to me earlier, that they were really working on it. They pay attention to the data, and that's the main thing to be able to get to where we want to go. Thank you so much. Anybody else?